I funded a $28,000 family trip to Dubai for my dad's retirement. We gave your seat to your brother's fiance, Mom texted. So I canceled everything. Their dream trip turned into a nightmare. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Hey Reddit! Didn't think I'd be airing my family drama here, but this one's too good not to share. I paid for a dream trip to Dubai for my dad. My brother demanded his deadbeat fiancée come too and that I cover it. I refused, so they stole my identity and gave her my seat. I made sure they got a vacation from hell. I'm 32, female, a project manager for a commercial signage company in Fort Worth. Started as an installer, climbing scaffolding and mounting signs in the brutal Texas summer heat. When it hit 105 degrees, that metal would literally burn your skin if you weren't wearing gloves. But I worked my way up through skill and hustle. Now I oversee contracts for everything from local stadiums to corporate buildings. Last quarter alone, I managed $1.3 million in projects, all delivered on schedule and under budget. I make around $85,000 a year, plus bonuses when projects go well. My parents hit rough times during COVID 4 years ago. Dad worked construction sales for decades, killing it until the pandemic hit and the industry tanked. He was pulling in 6 figures selling commercial-grade materials to developers across 3 states. Then everything froze overnight. Mom hasn't held a steady job, always with a new excuse. Back problems, the job market. Now it's her candle-making business that somehow costs more than it makes. When their landlord sold their rental house, they faced potential homelessness. They asked if I could help, just until they got back on their feet. I've always been practical with money. I still drive a 12-year-old Toyota 4Runner with 187,000 miles on it. Even though I could afford something newer, it runs flawlessly, it's paid off, and it's built to last. But I had the foresight to buy a second property as an investment in 2018. Nothing fancy, just a decent 2-bedroom condo in a safe area with good rental potential. I put down 20% to avoid PMI and locked in a 3.5% 30-year fixed rate before rates went crazy. I agreed to let my parents move in at $800 a month, about a third of market rate. The mortgage is $1,400 plus $320 in HOA fees. So I was actually losing money every month. I figured they'd be grateful for the help, get back on their feet, and either start paying market rate or find their own place within a year. Fast forward 4 years, and that rent money has shown up roughly 60% of the time. My parents have shorted me about $15,000 in rent over 4 years. Amanda moving in 2 years ago only made things worse. We'll catch up next month, became their motto, right alongside, why are you being so difficult about this? My brother, 26. Amanda is his own special category of entitled. She has a marketing degree. Party girl who suddenly became career-focused when the real world started demanding actual work. She moved in with my parents after her roommates got tired of covering her share of the rent. She tried the freelance social media consultant route for about 3 months before landing an entry-level job at a local marketing agency. She complains constantly about being undervalued, despite having zero portfolio to show. She makes about $42,000, but spends like she's making $120,000. Anytime I'd bring up the missing rent, Mom would hit me with, "We're family, not some corporation. Why are you nickel and diming us?" Meanwhile, they never missed a payment on their new SUV or Amanda's monthly spa treatments. Dad once told me with a straight face that they couldn't afford rent that month because they had to pay for Amanda's $400 hair extensions. Last year, I drove over unannounced on a Saturday and found them hosting a backyard BBQ with about 20 people. They'd installed a new 75-inch TV I hadn't seen before and had apparently just finished a kitchen remodel with granite countertops. When I asked about the rent money they owed me, Mom whispered, "Not now. We have guests," like I was the rude one. The breaking point came when Dad finally retired in March. Unlike most construction guys, he managed to avoid major injuries, though his knees are completely shot from years of job site visits. He needs replacement surgery, but keeps putting it off. For years, he'd talk about wanting to see Dubai. "Greatest construction achievement of our time," he'd say, like he personally advised on the Burj Khalifa blueprint. He had this coffee table book about Dubai skyscrapers that he'd flip through at least once a week, telling anyone who'd listen about the engineering marvels. I decided to make it happen as a retirement gift. Figured it would finally earn some appreciation and maybe reset our relationship. $28,000 for a 10-day trip to Dubai. First-class Emirates flights from DFW, four-star hotel near the Burj Khalifa, desert safari excursions, the works. I spent weeks researching the best time to go, even connected with my college buddy James, who's been working for an engineering firm there for 3 years. The guy's living like a king in an expat compound. Driving a Mercedes, he got tax-free. He promised to show us the real Dubai, not just the tourist traps. When I announced the trip at dinner, the initial shock and gratitude lasted about 5 minutes before Amanda asked if she could come. Freaking Amanda. Amanda is what happens when privilege meets delusion. Imagine every LinkedIn cliché packed into one 29-year-old with perfect teeth and a trust fund she pretends doesn't exist. She calls herself a serial entrepreneur and disruptive business strategist, but her actual business model consists of talking about business while others pay her bills. Her LinkedIn profile reads like AI-generated corporate nonsense. Lots of leveraging synergies, but zero actual revenue. Her profile picture is her in front of a rented Tesla, pointing at nothing while wearing a Patagonia vest. Classic. Amanda's venture capital connections? A second cousin who works as an administrative assistant at a firm that once invested in a failed meal kit startup. She constantly name-drops tech companies like she has inside knowledge, but it's all stuff she read on TechCrunch that morning. Every conversation with her eventually turns into a pitch for her latest venture, which is always just vague enough that you can't actually tell what the business does. Last Thanksgiving, she cornered me for 40 minutes explaining her revolutionary app idea. The entire concept was basically Uber, but for dog walking, which already exists in about 12 different forms. She has an uncanny ability to order the most expensive item on any menu while simultaneously reaching for her phone when the check arrives. Classic move. Oh, I need to respond to this email real quick, followed by a 15-minute bathroom break that mysteriously coincides with bill paying time. I initially said no to Amanda joining. I was maxing out my budget for 4 people. My brother immediately went full Karen. "Why do you always have to ruin everything?" he snapped. "It's not like you can't afford it with your fancy project manager job." He conveniently ignored the fact that his marketing specialist fiancé earned enough to afford a weekend trip to Austin, not a luxury Dubai vacation. My parents sided with him. Mom's classic guilt trip. But we're family, and Amanda is going to be family soon. Don't you want your father to have everyone there for his retirement celebration? Dad joined in. Sweetheart, it would mean a lot to have everyone there. Amanda's actually quite knowledgeable about international business. I looked Amanda dead in the eye and said, "If you want to come, you can pay your own way. Should be pocket change for someone with your business acumen." The way her face twitched told me everything I needed to know about her bank account. She mumbled something about liquidating assets and transferring funds from offshore accounts, which I'm pretty sure was code for asking my daddy for money. The subject seemed to drop after a few days. I thought they'd finally accepted my boundaries. I should have known better. These are people who believe boundaries are just suggestions, like speed limits or tax laws. I remembered Amanda bragging about how a college buddy of hers now worked TSA at DFW. "If you ever need a favor, I'll take care of it," she had smirked. I thought she was full of it. Now it all made sense, but wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. 2 weeks before the trip, Amanda cornered me in my parents' kitchen while I was grabbing coffee. "So, I've been thinking about maximizing our Dubai opportunity," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Uh-huh," I replied, not giving a damn while I poured myself a cup of coffee I brought over. "We need to book meetings with real estate developers while we're there. The UAE market is primed for disruption, and I've got concepts they'll want to hear." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Seriously, all the big players are there. Emaar Properties, Nakheel, Damac, and this could be the perfect chance to secure some seed funding for my next venture. "Not in the budget, Amanda. I'm already covering the entire $28,000 for the family trip." I'd actually checked out those companies while planning the trip. The idea that they'd take a meeting with a random American with no portfolio, credentials, or actual business plan was laughable. "But this is a once-in-a-lifetime networking opportunity," she pressed, finally looking up from her phone. "I've been developing a concept for a revolutionary co-living space that combines WeWork with high-end residential. So, an apartment building with desks? I asked. Her eyes narrowed. It's more nuanced than that. It's about creating synergistic living environments that foster cross-pollination of ideas while maximizing square footage utility. Right, still not in the budget. That evening, my brother confronted me about it, calling me a jerk for not helping with Amanda's important business opportunity. According to him, I was sabotaging her career because I was jealous of her vision. I stood my ground. The trip was for Dad's retirement, not Amanda's imaginary business deals. Fast forward to departure day. I was finishing paperwork on a project when my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We've decided that Amanda is coming on the trip instead of you. She's more fun and will take better photos for social media. Your father agrees she'll be better company than you would be. I stared at my phone. My stomach dropped. Was this some kind of sick joke? I replied, asking what she meant. She said, and I quote, Amanda is taking your seat, and you can always go on another trip sometime. We need her there for her business connections anyway. I replied with one word. Understood. Then I closed my office door and did what they least expected. I called Emirates directly to investigate what was happening. The agent confirmed I was checked in for departure in 3 hours, while I was sitting in my office 20 miles away. After speaking with supervisors, I discovered that Amanda had called Emirates a week earlier, claiming I had a medical emergency. She tried to get the ticket changed to her name, but Emirates doesn't allow easy name transfers. Instead, they plan to have Amanda use my boarding pass and somehow clear security. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was fraud. I called Emirates back and spoke to their fraud department. Since everything was booked under my name and credit card, I had leverage. While they couldn't stop passengers already checked in for today's flight, they could flag the return portion for security review. I then requested a full cancellation and refund of the return tickets, citing fraud. Next, I logged into Booking.com and canceled the hotel reservations. Then, I methodically called each tour company and canceled every excursion. I called James in Dubai to explain the situation. They were about to board a flight to a country they'd never visited, thinking everything was paid for, but I'd canceled it all. They'd kicked me off my own trip to bring Amanda instead. That's cold, James said. He paused. Also, completely deserved. What are they going to do when they land? Figure it out, I guess. Dubai isn't exactly budget-friendly for unprepared tourists. A decent meal at a mid-range restaurant would run $50 to $75 per person. A taxi from the airport to the city center? Around $50. Their emergency fund would evaporate within 48 hours. Then I called my bank and reported my credit card as compromised, had a new one issued with a different number, froze my other accounts temporarily just in case anyone had my account details. I wasn't taking any chances. These people had proven they felt entitled to my money. My best friend Matt always saw through their BS and warned me, but I didn't think much about it. So I texted him. Remember that conversation about consequences? It's happening now. He came over that night with drinks, and his buddy Ryan, who works as a locksmith. By 10 and 12 p.m., every lock in my rental property had been changed, new security cameras installed, a keypad lockbox mounted by the front door. I contacted a property management company I'd worked with through my job, had them draw up a formal lease agreement at full market rate, $2,850 per month, utilities not included, first and last month's rent due immediately upon signing. Finally, I called my real estate attorney. I'd used him before for property matters, and he quickly drew up an official eviction notice, giving them 30 days to either sign the new lease or vacate the premises. That wasn't all. While my attorney was working on the eviction paperwork, I explained how Amanda had used my personal information to board the flight. She'd essentially committed identity theft. My attorney, who also handled criminal cases, immediately saw the opportunity. We need to document this fully, he said. This isn't just a family dispute anymore. It's potentially criminal fraud. I filed a police report the next morning, bringing copies of text messages, screenshots of the original booking confirmation, and the flight records showing someone had used my ticket. The officer taking the report looked impressed by my documentation. Most identity theft cases don't have this level of evidence, he said. Usually, it's just a mysterious charge on someone's credit card, not a fully documented case with written admissions. I also called Emirates back and asked to speak to their fraud department. The rep was professionally horrified when I explained what happened. Ma'am, this is a serious security breach, she said. Someone using another person's boarding pass and identification is something we track very closely. She flagged the incident for internal review and assured me they'd be investigating. And remember Amanda's TSA buddy? Turns out he really did help her bypass the ID check. Emirates didn't catch the mismatch until the return leg, which triggered the security review. My attorney sent a formal cease and desist letter regarding the identity theft and helped me file charges for identity fraud and misuse of personal information. Their Emirates flight landed in Dubai around 7 o'clock p.m. local time. I imagine the excitement as they deplaned, all smiles and Instagram stories, ready for their luxury vacation. Except there was no hotel shuttle waiting, no reservation, no return flights. Matt came over to my place that night with pizza and drinks. We also spent time setting up a detailed spreadsheet, tracking every penny they'd borrowed or taken from me over the years. Dates, amounts, and any promises made about repayment. The first panicked call hit my phone around 9 p.m., my time. I didn't answer. Then another, and another. My phone started blowing up with text messages, which Matt and I read out loud between bites of pizza. Megan, what the heck did you do? Amanda, this is completely unprofessional and potentially illegal. My attorney will be contacting you. Mom, please call us back. We don't know what to do. I replied with a single text. Enjoy Dubai with Amanda. I hear she's more fun than I am. Then I turned off my phone and enjoyed the first peaceful night I'd had in months. Matt couldn't stop laughing. Dude, Amanda's attorney? What attorney represents people who can't afford their own plane tickets? The same one who handles all her billion-dollar deals, I replied, reaching for another slice of pizza. 2 days later, I turned my phone back on. The messages were becoming interesting. Dad, we had to call Amanda's father to wire emergency money. You've embarrassed me in front of my future daughter-in-law. Megan, Amanda fell off a camel during the desert tour we had to book last minute. She broke her arm and can't take photos of anything now. Mom, this is all your fault. Amazing how my fault extends to a pissed-off camel. From their messages, I pieced together a pretty clear picture of their Habibi adventure. They were stranded at the airport with no hotel reservation, no transportation, and rapidly dwindling funds. They had to call Amanda's parents to wire emergency cash. That must have been a fun conversation. Hey, Dad, we need $5,000 wired immediately, or we'll be sleeping in the airport. They spent 3 nights in a budget hotel by the airport that apparently had cockroaches the size of mice. Based on my research, they probably paid about $400 per night for that privilege. Dubai's version of a budget hotel is still priced for oil barons compared to American standards. The coup de grace was Amanda having to sell her vintage Rolex, definitely a knockoff, to cover some expenses. From what I could gather through their texts, she got about $500 for a watch she claimed was worth $12,000. Tragic. They landed back in Texas 5 days after they left. They'd spent most of the trip panicking, broke, and apparently being chased by stray dogs near their budget hotel. According to Megan's angry texts, they spent most of their time arguing in the hotel room, Amanda blaming my brother for the vacation from hell, and my parents questioning their future daughter-in-law's business acumen. My favorite part? They apparently tried to visit the Burj Khalifa, but couldn't afford the observation deck tickets. So, the centerpiece of Dad's dream trip was something they only saw from the ground. Sucks to suck. When they pulled up to my place in an Uber, I was standing in the driveway with Matt. We were casually drinking coffees, looking like we'd been having the time of our lives while they were suffering in Dubai. I'd positioned both our cars in the driveway, my 4Runner and his Tacoma, so they couldn't pull in. "What the actual hell was that?" Dad shouted as he got out of the car, his face lobster red from either the desert sun or rage. I took a slow sip of my coffee. That, I said, was what consequences look like. "You stranded us in a foreign country," my mother screamed. "We could have died." "Yet here you are," I observed, "alive and well, minus one functional arm, I see." I nodded toward Amanda, whose arm was in a makeshift sling. Amanda stepped forward, wincing. "You realize what you've done is actionable, right? I have contacts at 3 major law firms who would take this case pro bono." Matt snorted. "Damn, that must be convenient. Do those law firms also provide medical care for camel-related injuries? Because that sling looks like it was made by a toddler with a dish towel." "You have no idea what we've been through," Dad growled. "Amanda broke her arm when the camel threw her. The hotel had no working air conditioning." "Megan got food poisoning from a street vendor," Mom added. "We had to sleep in the airport one night because our credit cards wouldn't work, and the embassy was absolutely no help at all." That last part didn't surprise me. What did they expect the embassy to do? "Hello, American Embassy. My daughter paid for a luxury vacation and then canceled it when we uninvited her. Please send the Marines. Don't forget the camel incident, I said, unable to hide my smirk. I heard that was particularly traumatic. Amanda's face turned an even deeper shade of red. That camel was clearly not trained properly. I specifically told the guide I was an experienced rider. Oh, I'm sure you did, Matt muttered, just loud enough for everyone to hear. Right after you told him about your Fortune 500 connections and crypto portfolio. Megan was almost in tears now. We had to call Amanda's dad for money. Do you know how humiliating that was? Almost as humiliating as uninviting someone from a trip they paid for, I suggested. You never answered our calls, Mom nearly screamed. We didn't know what to do. Well, you figured it out, didn't you? And from what I hear, Dubai has one of the lowest crime rates in the world. Plus, you had Amanda, the international business expert. I figured you were in capable hands. That's when I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the lease agreement and eviction notice. Since we're having a heart-to-heart, I said, unfolding the papers, let me set a few things straight. I handed them the documents. Here are the new terms for the condo. $2,850 per month. Utilities not included. First and last month's rent due immediately. You have 30 days to either sign this new lease or vacate the premises. They stared at the papers like I'd handed them a death sentence. This is illegal, Amanda started. You can't just... It's completely legal, I cut her off. You were never on any lease. My parents have been month-to-month tenants paying well below market rate, and I've decided to change the terms. It's all laid out in black and white. What? Why? Mom protested. We don't have that kind of money right now. Not my problem, I replied. I'm sure Amanda's parents can help you out again, like they did in Dubai. My father stepped forward, his voice suddenly soft. Sweetheart, this is extreme. We're talking about your family here. No, I said. This isn't about family. It's about business. And business is what I'm doing now. As they turned to leave, I added one final point. Oh, and the locks have been changed. Your new keys will be provided after you sign the lease and pay the first and last month's rent. You can get access to retrieve your belongings by contacting the property management company listed on page 3. They didn't sign the new lease. They also didn't leave. The 30 days came and went with them, ignoring my property manager's calls and emails. They thought they could wait me out, that I'd eventually soften and let them go back to the way things were. They were wrong. I filed for eviction exactly one day after the deadline passed. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. During that time, they alternated between ignoring me completely and sending manipulative messages. Mom, I raised you better than this. Dad, no daughter of mine would treat her parents this way. Megan, I hope you're happy destroying our lives for your petty revenge. Each message just reinforced that I'd made the right decision. Not once did they acknowledge their role in creating this situation. Not once did they offer to make amends or take responsibility. It was always about what I was doing to them, never about what they had done to me. While the eviction process played out, I wasn't sitting idle. The identity theft case was moving forward too. The police report I'd filed got assigned to a detective who specialized in fraud cases. He called me for a follow-up interview and seemed genuinely interested when I handed over the texts, screenshots, and flight records showing how Amanda had used my identity to board the flight. This is pretty clear-cut, the detective said. Most identity theft is harder to prove, but they basically admitted to it in writing. Yeah, they weren't exactly geniuses. The Emirates Fraud Department also completed their review. An airline rep called to inform me they'd flagged Amanda's passport in their system and confirmed what I suspected. She'd used my boarding pass and identifying information to get through security and board the flight. My attorney was methodical about the whole process. He filed the identity theft and fraud charges separately from the eviction proceedings, explaining that mixing them would only complicate both cases. Let the criminal justice system handle the identity fraud, he advised. We'll focus on getting your property back. The courts don't like when people try to combine civil and criminal matters. I used those 2 weeks productively. Met with my financial advisor to adjust my investment strategy now that I wasn't subsidizing 3 adults. Started talking to a real estate agent about properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods. Even reactivated my dating profile after a 2-year hiatus. The judge at the eviction hearing was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who had clearly seen every sob story in the book. My attorney presented the case, tenants refusing to sign a new lease or vacate, a history of irregular payments, and the property owner's right to adjust terms. Their defense consisted mainly of, but we're family, and we've lived there for years, neither of which impressed the judge. Dad tried bringing up his knee problems and retirement, but the judge cut him off with a raised hand. Sir, medical conditions, while unfortunate, do not create tenancy rights, she said, peering over her glasses. Amanda tried to argue that as Megan's fiancé, she had some kind of right to be involved. The judge shut that down so fast I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Young lady, the judge said flatly, unless your name is on a lease or you have established residency for the legally required period, you have no standing in these proceedings. The ruling came down in my favor. They had 5 days to vacate the premises. 5 days. As we left the courthouse, my mother grabbed my arm. You can't do this to us, she pleaded. Where are we supposed to go in 5 days? Maybe ask Amanda. She's practically family now, right? Amanda stepped forward. My parents aren't going to house your family. That's your responsibility. I laughed. Funny how your entrepreneurial spirit doesn't extend to solving actual problems. What happened to all those UAE investors you were going to impress? That meeting would have happened if you hadn't sabotaged the trip, she shot back. Right, I nodded. I'm sure the sheikhs were lined up to throw money at. What exactly is your business again? I've known you for over 2 years and still have no idea what you actually do. What Amanda didn't know was that her identity theft problems were just beginning. 2 days after the eviction hearing, she and Megan were served with papers for the fraud case. The look on Amanda's face when she realized this wasn't going away was priceless, like watching someone who'd never faced consequences suddenly understand that actions have repercussions. They spent those 5 days alternating between begging, threatening, and guilt-tripping. None of it worked. On day 5, they finally moved out. My parents went to my aunt's house. Amanda and Megan apparently moved in with Amanda's parents, despite her earlier protests. When they left, they took everything that wasn't bolted down, including appliances that were part of the property: dishwasher, microwave, washer, and dryer. They also deliberately damaged several walls, broke a bathroom mirror, and left all their trash behind. My property manager documented everything, and I filed a complaint for property damage. My attorney suggested I could take it to small claims court for the stolen appliances, but I decided to just track it and keep receipts. They weren't worth another legal battle. The replacement and repair costs came to about $4,200, which I added to the spreadsheet tracking their debt to me. Not that I expected to ever see a penny of it, but it felt important to keep the record straight. Megan texted me too. Hey, I know we had our issues, but maybe we can grab coffee and talk this out. I'm willing to forgive everything if you help us with the first month's rent somewhere else. I didn't respond. A day later, she texted again. Fine, hope you enjoy being alone forever. Screw you. 2 days later, I got a text from my father. Your mother and I have decided that until you apologize and make this right, you are no longer our daughter. We didn't raise you to be this heartless. I replied, understood. Best of luck with everything. My mother started calling everyone in the extended family, telling them how I had abandoned them when they needed me most, conveniently leaving out the years of financial support and the Dubai fiasco. My father started sending increasingly threatening texts. The last one included some pretty explicit threats about how I'd regret this decision for the rest of my life. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I forwarded the message to my attorney, who sent a cease and desist letter. When that didn't stop the messages, I filed for a restraining order. The restraining order was granted after I presented the judge with over 30 threatening messages. The court bailiff, who served them the papers, reported back that my father had gone on a tirade about ungrateful children and family loyalty. Meanwhile, the identity theft case was working its way through the system. They didn't end up in jail, but both Megan and Amanda were hit with misdemeanor charges and fines. It wasn't enough to land them behind bars, but it was enough to give them both criminal records. The DA wasn't interested in pursuing felony charges since it was a family matter, but he wasn't about to let them walk either. They were offered a plea deal, misdemeanor charges in exchange for full cooperation and restitution. The DA said it wasn't worth wasting resources on a full-blown felony trial, given the family context. The airline security report sealed the deal. Emirates takes passenger identification very seriously, and their documentation of Amanda using my boarding pass was damning. The TSA agent who processed Amanda's boarding was also investigated. Turns out he was a friend of hers from college who helped her bypass normal security protocols. He lost his job, and Emirates implemented stricter ID verification procedures as a result of the incident. Amanda got off with a misdemeanor because she claimed she was just using the boarding pass I gave her, and the TSA agent, her friend, corroborated that lie. The agent took most of the heat for bypassing proper verification procedures. Amanda ended up with a $5,000 fine and 200 hours of community service. Megan got a slightly lighter sentence, $2,500 and 100 hours, since Amanda was the one who actually boarded the plane. The DA said the texts alone weren't strong enough to show Megan knew Amanda was going to impersonate me. She denied involvement, and Amanda took the fall. Both her and Megan were placed on probation for a year. The criminal records had immediate consequences. Megan lost a job offer at a marketing firm when it came up during her background check. She tried to explain it away as a misunderstanding, but fraud convictions aren't exactly minor issues for companies that handle financial information. Amanda's fake consulting business took an even bigger hit. Word got around about her criminal record, and suddenly those Fortune 500 connections she was always bragging about went silent. Turns out legitimate businesses aren't eager to work with someone convicted of fraud. Who knew? It's been a year since the Dubai disaster. I haven't heard from my immediate family since the restraining order was served. The silence has been surprisingly peaceful. I kept the condo, found reliable tenants who actually pay the full amount on time, and have been using the extra income to fund my hobbies and investments instead of subsidizing adult dependence. I used some of the newfound financial freedom to take an actual vacation of my own. 2 weeks in Costa Rica, surfing and hiking. I didn't post a single photo on social media, just enjoyed it for what it was. My cousin Laura dropped by a few times throughout the year, keeping me updated on the family drama. My parents had moved from my aunt's house to another relative's, then another, burning bridges at each stop. They'd taken loans from various family members, promising to pay back as soon as their situation stabilized. None of those loans had been repaid. Most of the extended family had cut ties with them after realizing they were being used as temporary ATMs, a role I knew all too well. Amanda bailed on Megan about 2 months after the eviction, moving on to dating the daughter of a local restaurant owner. Megan wasn't doing well. She'd wasted a bunch of money on some online business scheme that turned out to be a scam, no doubt inspired by Amanda's entrepreneurial vision. She'd started drinking heavily and was living with roommates who were about to kick her out for not paying her share of utilities. My father's knee problems had worsened to the point where he needed surgery, but Medicare would only cover part of it. My mother was working part-time at a craft store but still dumping money into her failed candle business. She'd even set up a GoFundMe for my dad's surgery that had raised a whopping $340 in 3 months. I checked it out one night after a few sodas and donated exactly $1, just so they'd see my name on the donor list. According to Laura, my name had become synonymous with betrayal in family conversations. They'd rewritten history completely. Now I was the villain who had abandoned them without warning, after years of them helping me build my career. Me? I'd moved on with my life, got promoted at work to senior project manager, overseeing all commercial projects over $750,000. Started dating a civil engineer named Jack, who doesn't believe that family is a blank check to be cashed at will. Expanded my investment portfolio. Even started mentoring a couple of younger women at work on financial literacy. Then they finally tried to reach out again. Mom sent me a message from a new number, asking if we could meet. Of course, I agreed. I wanted to witness it with my own eyes, see how badly they'd screwed up, see how far they'd fallen. They came over, knocking on my door. My parents and Megan were standing on the porch, looking like they'd aged a decade in a year. Hollow eyes, slouched shoulders, cheap clothes that still couldn't hide the weight of what they'd lost. "Thank you for seeing us," my father began. I nodded but said nothing. "We've been doing a lot of thinking," my mother continued, "about everything that happened, about Dubai, about how we treated you." Megan was crying silently. "Amanda bailed the second things got hard," she murmured. "You were right about her all along." "What do you want?" I asked, cutting to the chase. My tolerance for manipulative performances was non-existent at this point. I'd developed a pretty reliable BS detector over the past year. They exchanged glances. "We want to reconcile," my mother said. "To be a family again," Dad added, voice low. "We need a place to stay," my father admitted, "just until we get back on our feet." Same phrase, different year. Part of me wondered if they even realized they were using the exact same line they'd used 4 years ago, when this whole mess started. "You disowned me," I said. "We're not family anymore, remember?" My mother reached for my hand. I moved it away. "Please," she whispered. "We were hurt and angry. We didn't mean it." "No," I said. "You meant it at the time. You meant it when you thought other people would keep supporting you. You meant it until you ran out of relatives to leech off." My father looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't comprehend why his apology script wasn't working. In his mind, saying sorry was always enough to reset everything. It never occurred to him that some damage can't be undone with words. But I'm not your backup plan, I continued, and I'm certainly not going to let you move back into my property after the damage you caused. Megan's face hardened. This is still about your stupid trip, isn't it? We've both paid for that. I lost my career because of the charges you filed. I looked her dead in the eye. You lost your career because you committed identity theft. Now you know what it's like when doors close because of things on your record. They all fell silent, for once. As they turned to leave, I stopped them. I have something for you, I said. I walked back inside, grabbed an envelope from my kitchen counter, and returned to the door. I handed it to my father. Inside was $3,000. This is for your surgery, I said flatly. They stared at the envelope, then at me. A glimmer of hope flashed in their eyes. This isn't reconciliation, I continued. This is closing our accounts. I won't have your health problems on my conscience, but that's all, nothing more. My father's hand trembled as he took the envelope. Thank you, daughter, he muttered. Don't call me that, I said, opening the door wide. I watched them walk to their car, heads down, defeated. On the drive home, they'd probably convince themselves this was the first step toward getting back into my life. They'd be wrong. Still waiting on that call from Amanda's lawyer, by the way. It's been 3 business days.